Thunder rolled like a drumline as Bowser stood before an enormous easel. At least enormous to anyone who wasn't exactly the size he used to be. Dark clouds swirled outside the window of his mini-castle, lit from within by a single lamp and the glow of a particularly triumphant paint splatter. He stepped back, tiny chest puffed, and admired the final stroke. "This is a masterpiece," he rumbled, voice wobbling with joy. The painting showed a skeletal Mario posed like a tragic hero, dramatic, stark, and unmistakably inspired by the old game-over silhouette that used to haunt many a galaxy. Black and bone-white, and a splash of crimson for drama. Bowser's claws had a flair for theatrics, and for a moment the castle felt like his again. A gigantic face filled the window. "Luigi." His nose pressed comically to the glass, as if inspecting a fishbowl aquarium. "Whatcha painting, Bowser?" he asked, equal parts bemused and curious. Bowser nearly dropped a jar of starbit blue pigment. "Luigi." He paused, flustered, then straightened and tried to look dignified. "What do you think?" Luigi's grin was honest and wide. "It's spooky in a good way," his eyes softened. Standing next to Luigi, Mario's shadow stood rigid and watching. He hadn't come to be charmed. He remembered teeth and fire, and the way Bowser had driven him to the brink the last time they had clashed. "I don't trust him," Mario thought, jaw tight, voice silent as stone. A year earlier, after an especially explosive defeat, Mario and Princess Peach had chosen restraint mixed with compassion. Bowser had been shrunk with a mini mushroom and placed inside a painstaking replica of his castle that sat inside of Peach's castle, with Mario and Luigi keeping guard on Bowser to make sure he didn't try to escape from his tiny prison. Luigi had visited often. Mario came less, more sentinel than friend. Peach had hoped kindness could tame the terrible temper, and Mario had hoped that watchfulness could keep the Mushroom Kingdom safe. From the vantage of his tiny battlements, Bowser had transformed confinement into craft. He'd fitted thimbles as planters, twine as tapestries, and made a throne from the lid of an old cookie tin. He painted not only to pass the time but to be seen. Vigorous lava landscapes, a still life the pie of many sweets, and self-portraits staged with Princess Peach smiling politely by his side. He discovered the peculiar solace of routine, trimming a single bonsai-like volcano plant each morning, organizing brushes by claw size, and curating a greatest hits wall of canvases that reflected moods both grand and ridiculous. Painting had become a way of translating growls into strokes. Sometimes the pictures were fierce, sometimes unexpectedly tender. On that afternoon, he climbed to the top turret, paintbrush tucked behind an ear, and presented his latest work, an idealized portrait of himself flanked by Princess Peach. Luigi clapped, eyes glittering with encouragement. Luigi said, "Oh wow, you've really improved, Bowser. I really like all of the colors." Mario, however, narrowed his eyes, crossed his arms, and declared bluntly, "It's trash." The phrase hit like a thrown shell. Bowser's nostrils flared. One paw slammed the canvas and it snapped with a theatrical crack. For an instant, the old Bowser rose like steam. Angry and enormous in all the ways Mario feared. "How dare you criticize my work? I will tear all of your skin off and only leave your bones." "You," Bowser began, menace cracking through. Luigi stepped back, alarmed. Mario's face hardened into an expression that had kept him alive through worse. Then Bowser's expression shifted. The fierceness simmered into embarrassment. No, I didn't mean it," he said, voice smaller. "That was the old Bowser. I promise I'm different now. I'm going to go get my 8 hours of sleep now, or I'll really turn into a monster." He shuffled away to a tiny bed as if that could seal his claim to change. Luigi bought it wholeheartedly. Mario did not. He had seen promises like this before, and being reformed was a long road for a Koopa King whose claws were made for demanding and taking. That night the sky became a painter's dream. Comets carved bright swaths through the night sky, scattering star bits like confetti. Toads rushed about with baskets, laughing as they scooped up the glittering treats, which later ended up in pies, pastries, and festival punch. Princess Peach declared the Star Festival open, a centennial celebration when a comet brushed close and the Mushroom Kingdom looked up in awe. Beneath the festival's jubilation, a darker preparation unfurled. At hidden shipyards and under tarps, Bowser's minions readied hooks and chains, polished airships, and waited for a signal. Escape plans, once idle fantasies, turned into engineering blueprints. The objective was simple: free Bowser, return him to his former size with Kamek's magic, and reclaim Peach's castle in the name of the King of Koopas. Mario and Luigi took turns watching the tiny castle that sat within Peach's halls that night. Bowser, painted by lamplight, hummed to himself. The brothers' sense of duty pitched them against the soft evening music of the festival. A tapping noise at a window turned both brothers' heads. They peered out to find an unfamiliar figure wearing a mask and a smirk polished with mischief. Bowser Jr. introduced himself without ceremony. "I'm Bowser Jr., and I'm here to get my dad back." He flourished a paintbrush that shimmered not with art, but with an uncanny glow. In moments, that brush, touched by magic, grew into a mace. With precision and surprising force, he knocked Mario and Luigi off balance, and then Bowser's troops quickly bound them. Bowser Jr.'s grin widened. His mission was almost complete and had little resistance. He scooped the tiny castle, Bowser inside, and made his escape. Kamek's hat tilted, his wand hummed with glowing power. Magic uncoiled like a ribbon and wrapped Bowser in color and thunder. He expanded, claws elongating, shell unfurling, the old rumble returning. Bowser now stood full size on an airship deck once again. "Bowser is back. Let's take Peach's castle for our own," he announced with a laughing thrill that echoed into the stone below. Airships responded like obedient beetles. Hooks and clawed grapples lanced out, caught the turrets of Peach's castle, and began the impossible, lifting a castle clean from its roots. The people of the Mushroom Kingdom watched in frozen horror as their home rose, lifted by steel and Bowser's will, and drifted toward the glittering canopy of stars. Mario and Luigi escaped their bonds and raced through corridors as Peach's scream echoed from the uppermost tower. Mario shot upward as if launched by duty. He reached the highest battlement and saw Kamek floating with malicious delight. "Enjoy your flight," Kamek said, and with that Mario was blasted outward. An arc of red and blue, into the cold, glittering sea of space, screaming as the Mushroom Kingdom shrank below him. Darkness and then blackness swallowed him. When Mario regained consciousness, he was on a patch of grass so vivid it seemed painted. Tiny creatures with flopsy ears and energetic hops bounced around him. Star bunnies. Their voices were quick and playful. "If you want to know where you are, catch us," they chit-chattered, turning the rescue into a game. Mario laughed, despite the soreness in his ribs. Catching the three bunnies turned out to be a ridiculous, joyful exercise in patience and clumsy heroics. Each capture felt like relief. When he finally scooped up the third, the bunnies shimmered and transformed into Lumas. Small star-like creatures with personality and purpose. A single Luma led Mario to a gently floating observatory that hung like a silver lantern above the planet's curve. Rosalina descended like a moonlight whisper, tall, serene, and ancient in a way that made time itself feel like an old friend. She explained the comet's true nature. The Comet Observatory was not merely a festival object, but a vessel on a voyage, passing by her home planet every 100 years to visit it, and the grand stars that powered the observatory had been stolen by Bowser Jr. Worse still, Princess Peach and several grand stars had been carried toward the center of the universe by Bowser and his forces. Without those stars, Rosalina could not pilot the observatory home. "You must gather the grand stars," she said, voice steady and grave. "Only then can we reach the center of the universe and rescue what was taken." Mario's chin tilted. He accepted without hesitation. There was no hesitation left. Only a steady, purposeful nod as he prepared to chase the scattered lights across space. Mario's first launch from a launch star shot him into the Honeyhive galaxy, all golden pollen and buzzing peril. A queen bee fretted over her hive, besieged by Bugaboom, a monstrous insect of unwieldy appetite. Mario's few bee mushroom transformations made him light and nimble. He darted through honey tunnels, dodged swinging pollen pods, and eventually faced Bugaboom in a showdown that required timing, sweetness, and a well-placed shell throw. The victory yielded a power star and a handful of rescued toads. Captain Toad emerged, out of breath and indignant about how he had been carried along in the chaos of the Snatched Kingdom. Together they returned to the Comet Observatory, and inspired, the Toads began building a proper Toad spaceship, determined to help take back the grand stars with coordinated might and enthusiasm. Mario's next voyage led him to the Good Egg Galaxy, a cyclone of islands, ancient statues, and islands that spun like bowls. There he saw a familiar sight, a Yoshi egg. Mario heard Yoshi trapped inside of that egg, and freed him by defeating a nearby Kamek, whose magic had trapped Yoshi in the egg. The two teamed up, and flights bound by Yoshi's tongue and Mario's agility dismantled one of Bowser Jr.'s airships. Amid the wreckage, Mario found a scrap of paper. It was an arrogant note from Bowser Jr. boasting that Luigi had been captured and held aboard Megaleg's moon. The news tightened Mario's chest into a knot. The mission shifted from recovery to rescue. Megaleg was a mountainous machine with a mouth of gears and a temperament built for stomping. Bowser Jr. taunted from atop a platform while Mario clambered up pistons, stepped on moving arms, and launched bullet bills to knock rockets from the robot's joints. The showdown felt cinematic, Mario racing up Megaleg while Luigi, bound but stubborn, found ways to disrupt circuitry from inside. In a climactic explosion of sparks, Megaleg's engines sputtered in a way that hurled Mario and Luigi free. But instead of falling to doom, they were caught by the shimmering uplift of a grand star. They blinked and then found themselves safe among friends, the stars glow a warm embrace. Rosalina welcomed them back into the observatory, the recovered grand star settling into place at the beacon with a reassuring hum. While Mario and Luigi plotted the next step, Lubba showed up. He was an eccentric, music-loving captain who arrived in a starship shaped like Mario's face. He asked to join the cause, and his starship, Starship Mario, became a cheeky and effective vessel for the team. Yoshi and Luigi partnered on a volcanic mission to face King Kaliant, an enormous octopus guarding a grand star, battling with lava-slick guile and teamwork. Meanwhile, in Toy Time Galaxy, where everything felt like a child's bedroom come to life, the Toads, Lumas, Star Bunnies, and a crew of penguins led by a boisterous coach confronted Mecha Bowser. The robotic giant was terrifying among bouncing blocks and whirling tops, but the ragtag team's creativity and cooperation freed the Gearmos and returned another grand star to the observatory. Mario's journey across the galaxies built bonds and revealed strengths in unexpected places. Each planet forced him to think differently, use the environment, trust new allies, and never underestimate small creatures with big hearts. Rolling Coaster Galaxy was a lesson in perseverance. Mario had to guide a star ball down an endless, twisting slide slammed with gaps, boosters, and the insistent requirement to collect 100 purple coins. He fell. He tried again. He missed a coin. He tumbled into a loop and ended up with 99, destined for comedic despair. But the final run, a heart-pounding descent that combined reflex, timing, and a rebound off a spring snagged every purple coin. The final flip into a floating finish line revealed a mysterious and glowing green star unlike the others, adding a new flavor of wonder to their collection. In the Throwback Galaxy, Mario bumped into history. A red Bob-omb recognized him, shouting greetings that felt like an old friend calling across a crowded battlefield. The Hoomp King sat waiting at the top of his fortress, and Mario faced him with a mixture of nostalgia and seasoned skill. The fight resonated with echoes of past games and present stakes. With every stomp and dodge bring a reminder that the past and the present were welded together by courage. At last, the Comet Observatory held 5 of 6 grand stars. The hope was tangible and nearly radiant. Then Megaleg reappeared, this time with Bowser Jr. aboard, and an ambush shredded the observatory's serenity. Rosalina fought valiantly but could not hold. She was taken, a captive behind steel and paint, hauled toward the center of the universe where Bowser now planned to build a reactor of cosmic scale. Lubba watched in horror as the ship that had been a home and beacon was battered. "We must go after her," he said, voice cracking. There was no time to power the observatory fully. Instead, the group took a daring step, seize Starship Mario and fly with the 5 grand stars they had to the center of the universe. The Lumas stayed to guard the weakened observatory. It was a risky plan that fit the team's character, bold, improvised, and bound by friendship. The center of the universe unfolded like a painting, where the rules of reality were only suggestions. Gravity bent in spirals, light layered like ribbons, phantom galaxies hovered close enough to touch. There, Peach's castle, now Bowser's stronghold of victory, sat in a luminous, impossible basin. Bowser had constructed a galaxy reactor, fed by stolen grand stars, and the castle pulsed with an energy that hummed through the hull of Mario's borrowed ship. They stormed the castle. The fight was epic and intimate, a blend of large-scale spectacle and personal stakes. Luigi jumps for Bowser Jr., Yoshi leaps to shield, Captain Toad squeaks instructions, and Mario barrels forward like the central chord in a frantic composition. Bowser loomed, triumphant and terrifying, painting banners of victory even as he fought. It was the face of a king refusing to yield. As the battle roared, Rosalina, using the last of her strength, formed a black hole. It was an act wrought with terror and nobility. It swallowed Bowser's armada in a whirl of starlight, but the black hole's hunger grew beyond control. The team fled as the tendrils of the void began to reweave cosmos and memory alike. In that falling, Rosalina leaned close to Mario and spoke of Lumas. How some become stars, some become whole worlds, and some become the music that holds the universe together. The last thing Mario saw before blackness was Rosalina's hand squeezing his, then the soft, ancient smile that had felt like home through the turbulence. When Mario opened his eyes again, it was a gentle, festival-filled dawn. The Star Festival. The kingdom breathed again. Laughter filled the air. Tables sagged with celebratory dishes made with star bits and warm pies. Mario checked himself. Limbs intact, cap crooked, but still his. The world was whole. Bowser, small and oddly domestic once more, sat within his tiny castle painting, oblivious to the enormity of what had almost occurred. Luigi hovered, tender and tired, while Mario took stock of the faces around him. Rosalina drifted by on the comet's passing, eyes gentle and luminous. She placed a hand on Mario's shoulder and nodded as if to say the truth he'd needed. The journey had not been a dream, it had indeed been real. Peach embraced Mario and Luigi, and the Toads cheered. Bowser Jr., looking somewhat awkward and surprised, offered a truce. For the duration of the festival at least, the Koopas agreed to stand down and celebrate as guests, a fragile patchwork trust allowing everyone to share the feast. Bowser's forces, chewing on sugared star bits and telling half-honest boasts, looked smaller without the grim music of war beneath them. The festival's warmth stitched up something frayed in all of them. Mario and Luigi exchanged quiet grins, the kind that belonged to brothers who had tumbled through danger and come out steadier. Yoshi snuffled at a pouch of extra Starbit muffins. Captain Toad argued with a penguin coach about strategy. Lubba tuned a small, triumphal melody on his star-shaped harp. As the evening glittered to a close, Mario noticed a red cap with eyes at the edge of the festival. It was curious and alive, with eyes peering out like an explorer in a new hat. It nudged a piece of tart, and then rolled away as if carrying a private joke. Luigi chimed, and Mario laughed, understanding what Rosalina had meant when they were in the black hole, and said, "Welcome, welcome, new galaxy," as if teasing an odyssey and inviting the next adventure into polite company. Rosalina's final words were soft and clear. "May the stars shine on your path." There was weight in them, an affirmation and a promise. The cosmos had shifted and reformed, friendships had been tested into fortitude, and the grand stars had been reclaimed. most of them at least by courage, wit, and cooperation. The Mushroom Kingdom had celebrated, repaired, and listened to stories that would be told for generations. Mario and Luigi had learned a renewed lesson. Trust is earned through actions, not promises. Bowser had reminded them of a complicated truth. He could be both ridiculous and terrifying. And for now, the world was safer because brave little things had been willing to run into great unknowns. The Comet Observatory drifted across the night, like an old friend abandoning and arriving at once. Rosalina returned to the stars with an observatory humming with power, the Lumas singing a quiet chorus. Mario's red cap twitched under the starlight, and when the brothers looked at one another, they felt that curious, pleasant tingle the world gives you when it's both familiar and full of surprises. Somewhere at the festival's fringe, Bowser Jr. scratched a paint-stained chin and watched the comet vanish. "Not over yet," he admitted softly, smiling not with malice but with the stubborn grunts of a child who wants to be part of the story. Mario and Luigi raised their slices of pie and cheered. The cosmos outside the castle was large, and in that largeness were countless doors. They had shut one for now. Others would open. The red cap blinked once more in the moonlight, and the wind carried a new possibility. An Odyssey-sized adventure, as patient as a star, waiting for the moment the Mario brothers decide to chase it.